All right, guys, you're looking at 3 foundlings from eBay. These look kind of interesting. I had seen them before. These came with no keys, unfortunately. They are Sterling Juniors, and they're made by a company called Engineering Unlimited in Muplus, Minnesota. As I said, no keys. Pretty interesting because these were advertised as gasoline pump locks, and I mistakenly thought maybe these were antiques. The one that really grabbed my eye was this one that looked like it'd been outside, but these are still made. After a little bit of research, this company's still around. They're still producing these locks. I don't know if they're still using them gas pumps or not, but that's the way they're advertised. Well, how do they work? Well, I got one that came unlocked. As I said, there's no key to these, but you see we have a steel ring here. This is the shackle, so you slide it onto your gas pump and then rotate it. And I will hold it up there, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it when it clicks into place. Something down in here is going to pop up into this slot. So listen for it. Now we're locked up. So with a little bit of play in it, just a little bit, but I don't think we're going to be forcing it open. All right, when you take a look at this guy, it is a warded lock. Now I know you can't see anything down in there, so what I'm going to do is probably overlay. I'll put this down here. Up here somewhere, I will put an overlay of what I see inside with our new fiber optic toy. So you can see it truly is a warded lock. And you can see there's a restriction down there, probably halfway, maybe a little bit further than that. So the restriction, of course, is to prevent us from using a wide-bladed key and sticking it in there and basically forcing everything. I got to tell you, I got these because I thought it'd be interesting to pick them. And also my idea was they're just warded locks. I'm going to make a key. First thought was to use these guys. So, I mean, these are warded lock bypasses. So let me separate these out. I've got 2 little ones, one there, and I think the other one's right there. That's a little one. Now, there's the little one right there. Hard to see through the camera lens. Those are the 2 small ones, and then the 3 big tools. The big ones definitely will not fit, but I thought maybe those small ones will fit. So when we have a choice here, we have the single actuator, and then this one is a double actuator. And so we're going to slide that in, but it doesn't slide in. It's still a little bit too big to go inside of there. So I have a pretty good idea what the key looks like. So I decided to try to make one. So I got a key for my 3 new locks. This turned in an all-day affair, guys. This one, I figured single actuator. He slides in perfectly, goes in all the way. When I turn him, he defeats the spring tension, but I get nothing. So I thought, well, maybe he's too fat. So I made a thinner one, and he does the same thing. I get no open on that guy. So I thought, well, maybe then it's a double actuator. So I made a double actuator one, slide him in, and again, he goes in. He's nice and tight. It's not like he's too narrow. Slides all the way in. And then when I turn him, he goes, defeats the spring-loaded tensioner, and I get nothing. No love on this thing at all. So I thought, all right, maybe I don't need 2 sides. By this time, I'd picked it a couple of times, and I'll show you how to do that. And they're not that difficult to pick. So I thought, well, maybe I have to use a different actuator on my key for each side, because you got to pick the left side down here, and you got to pick the right side a little higher. So I kind of made a guess. I figured that's about it after taking a couple measurements off my pick. Put this guy together, and he does the same thing. He goes in there, locks into place, he turns, he defeats the spring tension. No love. All right. Let me get him out of there. So now I'm down to one more try. I finally got a key that works. I got lazy. I stopped cutting them off. I'm just started working my way down the shaft here. This one actually does work. It depends on how you get it in there. It's not a reliable key, but it's got a little index on the end there. I slide him all the way in, and he may or may not work here. I really don't know. Defeats it perfectly, and it's nice and tight. And let me work him a little bit. He does work. It's just not reliable. It's not a reliable key. So if it's not reliable, it's not really a key. I really want to make a key. So here's what we'll do. Let me show you first how easy they are to pick, and then we'll get to business making or figuring out how to make a key for these things. Okay, I've got the vise clamped onto the shackle, and you can do this with your finger, but I think it'd be easier to keep it focused if I put it in the vise. I'm actually gonna, I guess I'll push up on this guy to tension it, and I'm gonna be using this little guy. This is the, let's see what we got here. It is the PN05 from Multipick. Nice deep hook. So I'm going to line it like with the warding. So just like a normal key, slide him in there past the warding all the way in, and then rotate it when I get past the warding. And I'll be quiet because once I set it, you can hear it click. And you heard that click. Now I'm going to rotate him to the other side and then feel my way around that warding again. And that's how easy these things are to pick open. I'm trying to get the pick out without bumping into the microphone. That's how easy. It's almost like you don't need a key. I don't know why I want to make a key. I just do. So what I thought I'd do, why don't we take a look at see what's inside of here? I don't think anybody's ever shown the innards of these things. It looks like it's pretty easy. These are creases all along both sides, and then there's a crease along the top where they just folded that over. I'll just grind all those off, and we should be able to just pop this off and get a look at the actuator and, more importantly, what those locking pawls look like so we can defeat them. So let me get to it. Be right back. All right, I have all three sides of this ground off, and I'm just holding it together with my fingers, I hope. So let's try it. Okay, we don't need that part anymore. It looks like the whole lock is held together with Scotch tape, but I think you can see how this works now. It's not quite how I envisioned it. You have these two little bars here that are blocking the shackle to prevent it from rotating, so you got to figure out how to get those out of the way. And see if I can get him out without dropping anything. It looks like it's all held together with Scotch tape. We have the restrictor on the end to keep us from shoving big wide stuff inside of there. And we also have a restrictor built into the housing that prevents us from rotating more than, looks like about 90 degrees. So we can't put it in there and twist it to force it with like a screwdriver probably. Everything really does look to be held together with Scotch tape. I wasn't lying. Let's try the key. I think what we have to do here, this is the locking pawl, and it looks to be a U-shaped piece of brass. It goes across the entire width, and it's hollowed out in the middle where all the wafers fit. Sorry about that. Where all the wafers fit here. And the wafers are, that's what the tape is for, to keep those things from falling out. We'll allow that to happen in just a minute. So we got to figure out how to move these guys. And I think, based on the way this is bent, the locking bars probably twist and spread that bar. Let's find out. Spread that bar. I'm going to go ahead and use my pick, I think. It's probably the best choice. See if I can find them in there. Well, let's use the key. Let's use the key that almost worked. There we go. It is spreading them, or at least the key is spreading one of them. All right, so we got to figure out how that works. So let's pull this guy out of here. Let's start cutting tape and dropping stuff randomly. All right, now it's starting to make a little more sense. These guys are all spacers, and they might be restrictors for the warding. I really don't know. We'll pull them out and take a look. And then it looks like we have two floating elements. This one maybe not floating so much, but that one is kind of free. This guy here, let's look at him from the other side. Maybe they're only free on one side, so you really do have to pick. Maybe it's side dependent. Nope, that second one is definitely stiff. He doesn't want to move. The front one does. Okay, so all spacers, restrictor plates, and then we have two curved elements, and the curves are to make room for the floating element that you have to manipulate with your key. So there are two of them, and they do have a spacer. So I'm starting to understand now why my key didn't work. If the gap on your key is wide like mine, that's too much. What will happen, you only need to be that wide. It's got to be a tiny little, very narrow cut, and then it'll touch those two actuators. If it goes any wider than that, you're going to get hung up in this bent part of these two plates that make room for the floaters. Isn't that cool? Low tech, but somebody put a lot of thought into that. That is very cool. All right, let's go ahead and pull these guys out. I don't have any clue how old the Scotch tape is, but it's not brittle, still kind of gooey. And let's see what went into this lock. I wonder if I can push it from the other side. Yep. Looks like the guts are going to come out. All right, give me some tweezers. Give me some good tweezers. Oh, those will have to do. I don't see the other ones up there. There they are. These are the guys I want. All right, I'm going to push out that first plate. Let's take them out in order. So there's our first restrictor plate. Well, he's not actually a restrictor. He's just a regular old plate. Same thing here. Let me put this up here. This stuff kind of stays in focus. Another one. Same thing. These are all fat. Now this next plate is a little bit thinner. And he's the same diameter hole. Again, another thin plate. And there's our first restrictor. And you can see where I've been monkeying around with this, scraping the inside of that with different key attempts. Okay, then we have a non-restricted plate. So that's to give the key room to work. And now we come to that first bent plate. Now after that bent plate, I don't know what's going to happen because there's an actuator behind it. I don't know if he's going to come just flying out of there or, okay, now notice he's bent. And then the actuator is right there and he's only on one side. Yep, only on one side and he's wedged between the bar. So I'm going to twist him out of there. So that's the only thing holding him in place, is he's wedged in place. And that's what he looks like. So he was pointed up. I'll just put him like that. We have another restrictor plate. And then the other bar is facing the opposite direction. So the idea that I had, again, purely random, of one-sided key, you know, then only a notch on each side, might not have been a bad idea. And he is really scraped from me jacking around with him. He was going the other way. Then we have the other bent plate to provide space for those two wafers to move around. And then we have our final plate. What a lot of work. Actually, this one's a little different. I know what this guy's for. Let me set this down for a second. This guy is to catch the tip of the key. And that's probably, I had the idea, but I didn't know the diameter of it. That's probably to index the key. Once it's inside of there, if you have nothing in there, then the tip of that key is going to be flopping around. He's a little bit narrow, but he was probably pretty close. So that was, I was headed down the right path. I just didn't have the measurements right. So my tip needs to be a little bit wider, and the gap between the two teeth needs to be quite a bit narrower. In fact, let me set him over here. The gap between these really should be not a lot wider than that plate. And you can see I've got it about 4 times as wide as it needs to be. So now that I know this little lock secret, might be a lot easier to make a key for it. All right, the last piece, again, a restrictor plate on the end that's pinched on the U-shaped piece of brass that is the locking pawl to fit inside of here. Anyway, guys, there you go. The Sterling Junior, or at least what's left of it. I still got 2 of these guys, and now I got a lot more intel about what I need to do to try to correct my key designing, see if I get into this thing. Anyway, fellas, I appreciate your time, appreciate your patience. It's hard to screw up a gutting when nobody knows what to expect, right? Anyway, guys, stay safe and stay legal. If you like the idea of growing the lock sport community, please consider supporting the Lock Lab by either becoming a Patreon or clicking the join button below.